I got up from Levi's bed. He lazily handed me my underwear. I've changed the password for the main entrance. Don't come over if it's not necessary from now on. I was stunned and subconsciously asked, why? He hooked his lips and smiled. She agreed to be my girlfriend yesterday. I'm afraid she'll be unhappy if she sees you. I've been chasing her for a long time. When I opened my eyes, my whole body ached terribly. Even though it had happened many times, I still couldn't get used to Levi's animal-like strength. Looking back, he was already awake. His beautiful latissimus dorsi was naked in the sunlight. With a faint honey color, his half-opened eyes were lazy. The stiffness and pain in my waist made me frown. I bent down to put on my stockings, only to find that yesterday's stockings had been torn to pieces by him and were completely unwearable. I turned over. His fingertip picked up my underwear and handed it over. A naughty smile flew from the corner of his eye. How old are you and still wearing this kind of white lace? Isn't it old-fashioned? Try something new. I took the underwear. Then I'll buy some new underwear. What kind do you like? But Levi interrupted me. There's no need. Later, I'll change the password for the main entrance. Don't come over if it's not necessary from now on. I was stunned. I've had this kind of relationship with Levi for a year. At first, he would call me over almost every few days. Later, except when he had to work overtime, I almost lived at his house. Usually, I would tidy up his house. When I got off work early, we would cuddle on the sofa and watch movies and eat popcorn. And we would be intimate before the movie ended, like a real couple. Slowly, I began to get used to this kind of life. Sometimes I couldn't help thinking that maybe I had also got used to my existence. If we could form a family in the future, it would definitely be very happy. But now he told me not to come anymore. I subconsciously said, is your family coming? Or are you busy with work recently? I can. He got up and looked at me. His thin lips curled up. It took me a while to figure out who the she in his mouth was. Recently, I heard that Levi is chasing a girl who just graduated from college. Over the years, women around him have been as numerous as fish crossing a river, coming and going. The longest one lasted only 3 months. I thought it was just a whim of his again before and didn't pay much attention. I said dryly, are you serious? Levi smiled. Serious. She is different from those women before. Olivia, you don't know. She is so innocent. I don't want her to know about us. She will be unhappy. I've been chasing her for a long time. The sunlight came in through the gap in the curtains. It was really dazzling. So dazzling that it made people dizzy. Okay. After half a second, I said calmly, then I'll move all my things out today. There's no need to be so hasty. I casually grabbed a pair of gray home pants and put them on. Didn't you return your house? Stay for 2 more days and leave after you find a place. I closed my eyes for a moment. The dry pain exploded in my eyes, making me a little at a loss. No need. I'll move out today. I don't know why I'm in such a hurry. Levi is right. In fact, I have nowhere to go, but I just want to leave here immediately. I feel like all my skin has been peeled off by Levi and exposed in the sunlight. I'm about to be swallowed up by shame. There aren't many of my things at Levi's house. Most of what I bought were pots and pans for cooking for him, the 4-piece bedding set on the bed, and some miscellaneous throw pillows and decorations. The decoration of the house is in a minimalist style. He once said helplessly that since I came, there are more and more things at home. But only one suitcase can hold all the things that belong to me alone. When I was leaving, Levi called me. He was naked with his strong upper body and leaned against the door. He lit a cigarette and lowered his head. Olivia, you're not young anymore. It's time to find someone and settle down. He exhaled smoke. There was a half smile on his lips. From now on, we're still friends. I understood what he meant and nodded. Okay. The winter in New York is damp and cold. The temperature is not very low, but that kind of cold seems to drill into people's bones. It seemed to be snowing. There was a cold and moist feeling on the tip of my nose. I looked up. The sky that was still clear just now seemed to suddenly turn cloudy. Countless tiny snowflakes fell one after another with the wind. It had been several years since it snowed in New York. Since I came to this city with Levi, it seemed that I hadn't seen snow again. I suddenly thought of the snow in my hometown, in a small coastal city in the north. In winter, the dampness and the sea breeze turns into goose feather like heavy snow and can fall all night. When I get up the next day, the snow can reach my knees. Everything around is a vast expanse of white. It's very refreshing. Unlike the snow here in the south wind, which is lingering and makes people feel uncomfortable in their hearts. I put my luggage aside and simply sat at the bus stop on the side of the road and called home. My mom answered the phone very quickly. There was excitement and a hint of caution in her voice. Olivia. The cold air was sucked into my nose. I rubbed my sore nasal cavity. Mom, I want to eat the dumplings you made. My mom was happy. Then shall I make dumplings for you? Let me check the air tickets. It's almost Chinese New Year. The air tickets may not be easy to buy. I interrupted her. No need, Mom. I'll go home for Chinese New Year this year. My mom was stunned. There was a hint of excitement in her voice. I looked up. It seemed that snowflakes had gotten into my eyes. I blinked my somewhat moist eyes and said hoarsely, Mom, I plan to go back to my hometown. That afternoon, I submitted my resignation. My boss tried hard to persuade me to stay. Is there something wrong with your salary? You can tell me and we can discuss it. The department manager will be transferred away next year. You are the most likely person in our department to move up. It's a pity to leave now. I shook my head with a smile. Thank you, Sister Wang. But I want to go home and accompany my parents. I am originally a person without great ambitions. I don't have the dream of becoming someone superior. I just want to live my own small life. I came to New York because of Levi. He wanted to develop in New York. So I followed him and stayed without hesitation. I thought that as long as I was by his side long enough, he would notice me. However, it turns out that only in matters of feelings can no effort help. On the way to the hotel, a bookstore on the street was playing a song. The female voice sang loudly, unconsciously loving until I dare not take risks. I've been your puppet for 1 or 2 years. Only then do I see how pathetic I am. Loving until compromising still has no solution in the end. Tying you down and not letting you fly. History repeats itself and makes me so tired. I listened quietly for a while. The first time I saw Levi was when I was 17 years old. Now I am 28 years old. After compromising for Levi for these years, I will be 30 soon. This 12-year absurdity should end. That night, I dreamed of Levi when he was young after a long time. At 17, Levi transferred to our small county town in his sophomore year, when the boys were still dusty. He was wearing a black down jacket. His broken hair was scattered on his forehead. He was tall and good-looking like someone from another world. That afternoon, almost all the girls in the whole grade came to look at him, by lying on the windows. Within a few days, even the school beauty came to give him a love letter, but he ignored everyone. He was always sleeping alone at the back of the classroom. He seemed to be uninterested in anything. He didn't bring anything to class and didn't listen. The teacher didn't care about him either. Occasionally during exams, he would poke my back. Hey, copy your answers. He seemed certain that I wouldn't refuse him. And I really didn't refuse him. Because of this, many boys didn't like him, and said he was pretending. There were waves of hooligans coming to find trouble with him every 3 to 5 days. During that time, I could almost see Levi fighting in the alley behind the school every day. That day when I passed by, he was leaning against the alley smoking alone. His face was full of injuries. I hesitated for a moment, stopped my bicycle, and took out a band-aid from my pocket and handed it to him. Your face is bleeding. He looked up and gave me a cold look. Get lost. I thought this person was really annoying at that time. What's so great about him? I don't like him. After that, no matter how much he poked me for answers, I ignored him. A month later, there were fewer girls coming to see Levi. but there were more rumors about him in the class. Some people said that the down jacket that I wore only once was a brand we had never heard of. One piece cost more than 30 yuan. Some people said that I was an illegitimate child. His mother was a mistress. He and his mother were discovered by his father's legal wife. His father didn't want them anymore. His mother couldn't make a living in New York, so she took him back to her hometown. All the gazes at I, whether admiring, disdainful, or curious, had a hint of subtlety. That night, when I passed by that alley on my way home from school, I found I lying on the ground. He seemed to have just had a fierce fight. There was blood on his finger joints. That good-looking face was full of scars. There was still blood flowing down his forehead. I didn't want to care about him at first, but looking at him lying in the snow with his eyes closed, the snow was falling continuously. He was almost half buried in the snow. There was no trace of blood on his face. I was afraid that he would really die, so I carefully walked over and touched him. Are you okay? He didn't move. I was a little anxious and took out my phone. Then I'll call 120. Only then did I lift his eyelids and frowned. Why is it you again? I was a little unhappy, but at this time, I couldn't care about much else. Mind your own business. He sneered and then closed his eyes again. I didn't pay attention to him and called 120. He was wearing very thin clothes. Only a black hoodie. I hesitated for a moment and took off my red down jacket and covered him with it. I was stunned. When I was leaving, he called me. I looked back. My red down jacket was bought a few years ago. It was a very old-fashioned style. When it was covered on I, it looked a bit funny. His eyes were gloomy. Don't you know that my mother is a mistress? I got on my bicycle. I've heard of it. So what? Then why did you still save me? Your mother is your mother. You are you. I thought for a while. Besides, although being a mistress is not good, it's not a capital offense. Right? I didn't speak. The snow fell on his trembling eyelashes. He stared at me fixedly. The sound of the ambulance soon rang out. I waved my hand. Don't forget to return my down jacket. For after that, I didn't come to school for a week. Those boys who fought with him were not much better either. After I's mother came to the school angrily. Those people were all expelled. A week later, I came. He handed me a blue down jacket and turned his head. Your clothes are broken. I'll compensate you with a new one. I didn't feel anything wrong and accepted it directly. Later, after a long time, I found out the price of that down jacket. It could buy all the clothes I had bought from birth to now. Later, things went smoothly. I's attitude towards me gradually improved. I became the only friend he had in this small town. Before the college entrance examination, I suddenly asked me, Olivia, do you want to go abroad? I was stunned. He lowered his head. His earlobes were red. My mother plans to let me go to the United States after the college entrance examination. Do you want to come with me? I said with a wry smile. Young master, how can my family afford to send me abroad? Then where are you going? I thought for a while. Beijing. I'm afraid I won't be able to adapt to the climate in the south. Beijing is also close to my home. In the future, I can go home by train in a few hours if I want. I reached out and pulled my woolen hat to cover my eyes and didn't speak anymore. Later, when the teacher asked everyone to write down their ideal colleges, I thought I would write an American university. But he wrote the same university in Beijing as me. I was surprised. Aren't you going to the United States? He lay on the table and mumbled. Suddenly I feel that the United States is not so good. Beijing is also good. But 3 days before the college entrance examination, I tore up that note. When I asked him, he just remained silent. That night, I found out that I's father's legal wife and son both died in the same car accident. After his father's legitimate son died in a car accident, his father finally began to care about this only remaining son. He said that as long as he stayed in New York, he would give his mother a status and let him inherit the family business. He said he didn't care about his old man's money. But his mother gave him a slap in tears and said to him, "Do you think I suffered all these years for nothing? For whom? As long as your father can marry me, your mother will no longer be a mistress. In the future, no one can call you the son of a mistress anymore." In the summer, the cicadas were so noisy that it made people's heads buzz. Under the white birch tree, Levi lowered his head and didn't look at me. "Sorry, Olivia. I can't go to Beijing with you anymore." His voice still had a hoarseness from crying. The corners of his eyes were red. I thought for a while and stood on tiptoe to knock on his head. "It's okay. Then I'll accompany you to New York." 5. When I opened my eyes, it was already morning. Probably because I was caught in the snow yesterday, I felt a little headache. However, a friend's birthday is tonight. I've already bought the gift. I must go. I picked up my phone. Levi's message was at the top. He sent a picture. It was a Snoopy pajamas. "I forgot to take my pajamas. Come and get them tonight." That was a couple's pajamas that I secretly bought before. One for him and one for me. Occasionally when he wore it, I would have a false sense of happiness. I always felt that this person seemed to belong to me for a second. But now thinking about it, it's really pitiful and ridiculous. I replied with a few words. "Throw it away. I don't want it anymore." He didn't reply again. I turned over and covered my eyes with my arm. After coming to New York, many things happened to Levi. Only then did I know that his mother was not a mistress. In the past, his mother was with his father first. His mother gave birth to him really because she loved his father. But later, his father found a woman from a similar family background and got married. He abandoned their mother and son. After Levi's father married his mother, he still lingered among the flowers outside. He even wanted to have several sons. His mother's life was very difficult. She quarreled with his father every day. Finally, she suffered from severe depression and jumped to her death. After that, his father seemed to suddenly settle down and never looked for women outside again. But the rift between father and son could no longer be repaired. After that, Levi never went home again. He started drinking heavily, racing cars, and smoking heavily. He became like other rich second generations. He partied all night. In the past, he was indifferent to all girls. But now he is among the flowers and has become a skilled veteran. That clean Levi seems to have become a bubble. Just a phantom dream in my memory. At this friend's gathering tonight, I saw Levi's new girlfriend for the first time, a fair-skinned girl, wearing a camel-colored coat. Her long chestnut curly hair was wrapped in a cashmere scarf. She had curved eyes when she smiled. She looked very quiet. Not extremely stunning, but very pure. Levi was right. She was really very different from his previous girlfriends. "Are you Sister Olivia?" She jumped over and held my hand and smiled. "I heard Levi mention you often. He's really a liar. He also said you're not good looking. But you're so beautiful." As women, I could easily see the hostility in her eyes. It seemed that women's sixth sense was really accurate. She should know that my relationship with Levi was unusual. I was about to speak when Levi interrupted me. He held the girl's hand. "Liana, this is your sister-in-law." Others made a commotion. "This is the first sister-in-law that brother Levi brought out. It seems that this is a real sister-in-law this time. Sister-in-law is really amazing. There have been so many women who liked our brother Levi over the years. No one has ever been able to catch him. When will there be a wedding? I will definitely give a big red envelope." Liana leaned against Levi with a red face and smiled without saying, "After all, you are still single. It's better to avoid suspicion with a man who has a girlfriend. Don't you think so?" I frowned. Clearly, I sat down first. Now I have to change places. "What's the reason for this?" Levi pushed me. "Don't make your sister-in-law angry. Olivia, change places." I looked at him and got up and moved to the opposite side of them. This night was very lively. I don't know how much alcohol was opened. During the meal, Liana pushed Levi. "Levi, I want to eat that fish." Levi subconsciously said, "Aren't you allergic to fish?" Liana fell silent. And my chopsticks also paused. After a long time, Liana's face looked a bit ugly and said, Levi, I'm not allergic to fish. Levi's movements paused. Really? Then maybe I remembered it wrong. Liana stared at him. Who is allergic to fish? Levi was nonchalant. Forgot. Drank too much. Liana glanced at me, her face a bit gloomy. Then she put a piece of fish on my plate and looked at me directly with her big eyes. Sister Olivia. This fish is delicious. Try it. The friend next to us didn't notice what had just happened and said drunkenly, Sister-in-law, you don't know. Olivia can't eat fish. She is allergic to fish. Liana said inferently. Oh. Really? After several rounds of drinking, everyone was a bit drunk. One of the friends blushed and said, Brother Levi, before we all bet whether you could settle down before you were 30. I didn't expect you to find true love so quickly. Another friend was also drunk and grinned with squinted eyes. Yes. Before we all thought that you and Olivia were so close. We thought you two would be together. Liana's face had already become so ugly that it could drip water. Levi suddenly hooked his lips. Really? How could we be together? We are best friends. Funny. As he said this, he really laughed. As if this was an extremely ridiculous joke. The friends also laughed. That's right. Now we know that you two are that pure opposite sex friends. I also laughed. That's right. How could I be with Levi? This is too ridiculous. Levi came over and hooked my shoulder. He was probably already drunk. His face was flushed. And his eyes were full of water. He tilted his head and said, Olivia, you don't really like me, do you? At that moment, I wanted to see something in his eyes. But there was nothing. He just looked at me directly. As if between us was really just the good friend he said. I raised the corner of my mouth. How could that be? That's good. Levi nodded. He shook my shoulder. We are best friends. Although I had drunk so much alcohol, I had never felt so sober. I repeated, best friends. The next morning, I bought a direct flight home. Before boarding, I took one last look at my phone. Levi posted a new moment. It was with Liana. There was no caption, only to interlocked hands. This was an official announcement. Below were all the blessings from friends. I looked at it for a while, pulled out my SIM card and threw it into the trash can. Going home seemed easier than expected. My parents picked me up by car. As the new year was approaching, red lanterns were hung everywhere in the streets and alleys. The shops were playing Ikers, wishing you a prosperous year. There wasn't as much prosperity as in New York, but the smell of fireworks and firecrackers left behind suddenly made me feel very at ease. My mom was extremely happy, because in order to accompany Levi for the new year, I hadn't gone home for the new year for 3 years. After being happy for a while, she couldn't help but nag. You are almost 30 this year. Why is there still no news? The girl of Uncle Zhang next door is still a year younger than you. The child can already buy soy sauce. Oh, I went to see it the other day. It's so chubby and really adorable. The little girl in my mom's unit all goes on blind dates. By the way, there is a young man who has recently come to live next door to us. He is very good looking. I'll introduce you to later, my mom said while observing my expression. Before, I was very resistant to blind dates. In these years when I liked Levi, I revolved around him. After our relationship became chaotic due to that one-night stand after drinking, I thought I had a chance. In my eyes, there was only him. So every time my mom mentioned blind dates and marriage, I was extremely annoyed and wouldn't listen to a word. However, this time, looking at the red confetti flying from firecrackers outside the window, I suddenly felt very tired. I was tired. Settling down wasn't so bad. I said, okay, don't be so resistant. Mom knows you like that person surnamed Lee. But what did you say? I lowered my eyelashes. I said okay. You introduce us. That night after dinner, I habitually picked up my phone but received a WeChat call from Levi. I had changed to a new WeChat account. But there were still many friends on the old one, so I would still log in these days. He seemed to have completely forgotten what happened these days and said naturally, "Why can't I get through to your phone?" Before I could speak, he continued, "Forget it. I've prepared everything for the new year. What else do you want to add? I'll ask my assistant to buy it." I suddenly remembered the year when Levi's mother just passed away. That year for the new year, I went back to my hometown. On New Year's Eve night, I made a video call to Levi to pay him an early New Year's greeting. The video was picked up after a long time. The screen was pitch black. Only a scarlet or orange dot could be seen slowly dimming. Levi's voice was hoarse. "What?" As the screen adjusted to the light, I realized that Levi was sitting alone on the balcony. There were scattered bottles and cigarette butts all around. Outside the window were the lights of thousands of families and gorgeous fireworks. But those festivities seemed to have nothing to do with him. He was just sitting alone on the windowsill, looking at the completeness of others. Alone in the night. He smoked. At that moment, I suddenly felt very sorry for him. My eyes were sour. I forced a smile and said, "I'm here to pay you an early New Year's greeting. Is there a red envelope?" He seemed to chuckle. Then the transfer notification sounded. He transferred 100 yuan to me. I was stunned. After a long time, Levi suddenly said in a low voice, "Olivia, come back early. I didn't know if he wanted to say that I was very lonely or that I missed you very much. I couldn't care about anything else. I hurriedly told my parents that there was an urgent matter at the company. Then I bought the nearest flight ticket back to New York. At 3 a.m., New York was still very lively. There were bright lights and bustling traffic everywhere. But all the lights at Levi's house were off. I went upstairs panting and knocked hard on the door. "Levi, open the door." I thought Levi had already fallen asleep. But unexpectedly, he came to open the door, very quickly. He looked at me directly. His whole person showed a rare stunned look. "You." He was stunned in place. "Why are you back?" I smiled with curved eyes. "I'm here to accompany you. For the new year." Levi didn't say anything and just kept staring at me. Just when I was almost embarrassed by his stare, he suddenly hugged me tightly. So hard as if he wanted to press me into his body. After that, every year I would accompany Levi for the new year and then go home. This seemed to have become an unspoken habit between us. But I didn't expect that this year he already had Liana by his side. He would still ask me to spend the new year with him. I looked out the window and said in a low voice, "I went back to my hometown." Levi was stunned. He seemed to have not expected me to say that. After a while, he said, Owen pretended to be natural. "Yes. You haven't gone home for the new year for so many years. It's right to go back and have a look." I held the phone. Silence fell on both ends of the phone line. I vaguely heard Liana's voice. "Levi, come quickly. How do I adjust this hot water?" "Coming." Levi replied. "Then I'll hang up." I pursed my lips. Levi's voice couldn't be heard with any emotion. I took the phone away from my ear and pressed to hang up. The screen darkened. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep. But unexpectedly, I fell asleep as soon as my head touched the pillow this night. When I woke up, it was already past 2 a.m. I was woken up by thirst. The winter in the north was dry and cold. I was still not quite used to it when I just came back. I went downstairs and drank a glass of water. However, just when I was about to go upstairs, I suddenly heard a slight noise coming from the bathroom. There was a thief in the house. My whole body tensed up and my hair stood on end. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't dare to breathe. After a pause, I tentatively stepped on the ground with bare feet. My phone was upstairs. I had to go up and call the police. But just when I was about to walk to the stairs next to the bathroom door suddenly opened. I was so scared that my scalp exploded. Subconsciously, I picked up an umbrella next to me and hit it. But the man grabbed it. He covered my mouth. It was only then that I realized belatedly that this thief was actually naked. The back exposed by my suspender was directly pressed against his naked upper body. There was also a faint smell of verbena mixed with water vapor. Damn it. This thief not only broke into our house, but was also naked. I was afraid that he would suffocate me to death. I turned my head and bit directly on his forearm and struggled wildly. However, the man's strength was too great. He held me tightly. I found that I couldn't break free. I was shocked, angry, and afraid. I was afraid that he would kill me to silence me, after being discovered. And my parents were still upstairs. I pleaded, trembling lie with tears in my voice. Please spare my life. There's my dad's private money in the cabinet next to the windowsill. It's estimated to be about 2,000 yuan. If you think it's not enough, I can also transfer it to you via WeChat. But I don't have much money either. I only have tens of thousands of yuan. Let me go after you take the money and we can pretend this never happened. I haven't seen you today. I'm still young. I haven't been in love or married. There was a chuckle in my ear. Then the living room light was turned on. After getting used to the glaring white light, I saw a young man standing in front of me, naked. Small drops of water flowed down his beautiful unstrung muscles to the muscles on his waist and then fell on the floor. He was very tall. A head taller than me, probably at least 188 cm. Standing in front of him, I was like a quail. I stared at him for a while and said in a complicated tone, "Brother, with your face, if you go into prostitution for one night, you can earn at least 30,000 to 50,000 yuan. Why are you so desperate to steal from my house?" The man's cherry-colored thin lips raised a slight arc. Only then did I realize that his voice was actually very pleasant to hear. "Are you Aunt Lee's daughter? I am the tenant next door. The water heater over there is broken. Aunt Lee asked me to come here to take a shower. I'm sorry I scared you." I was dazed for a moment. Only then did I remember that my mom seemed to have said that the place next door had been rented out just now. My family had bought two adjacent small seaside buildings. Although the houses in this small county town are not very valuable, the scenery is very beautiful. The balcony directly faces the sea. In recent years, tourism has gradually developed. Some people have come to rent houses one after another. I was so embarrassed that I wished I could find a crack in the ground and said with a flushed face, "I'm sorry. The man waved his hand. "It's my fault. I was also scared just now." Oh. There was a round tooth mark on his forearm that had already started to bleed. I was extremely ashamed. "I'm really sorry. I'll go get some iodine to disinfect it for you." Before I came back, I really didn't expect that on the first night I came home, I would sit on the sofa in my house, almost head to head. I pressed a cotton ball on his wound. Only then did I know, but his name was Theo. He was a painter. Recently, he came here to collect inspiration. It seems quite deep. I frowned as I stared at his wound. "Do you need to get a rabies shot?" Theo touched his chin and said seriously, "I think I need to get a rabies shot." I reacted slowly and realized that he was scolding me. I couldn't help but glare at him. But because I was in the wrong, I didn't glare so confidently. Theo also laughed. "Don't say it. Your tooth mark is quite round. It's quite aesthetic." My mom really likes Theo. She always invites him to come to our house for dinner. She secretly winked at me. "This young man Theo is very nice. He often helps me and your dad with work. Look at him. How good looking he is. If you to get married and have a child later, it will definitely be very good looking." I said helplessly, "Mom, that's enough. It's not that I don't think highly of Theo. It's just that I once saw the coat he was wearing. That coat that he casually threw on the back of our sofa. I had seen Levi wear it. An Italian hand-made custom-made coat made by a century-old family. One piece costs at least 6 figures. This is also a young master. He and I are not from the same world. However, Theo really knows how to please middle-aged and elderly people. He calls aunt and uncle every mouthful. Since he came, he has been the one to move the large water bottles at home. Even my dad, who is so picky, can't help but praise him. Even on New Year's Eve, My mom invited him over and said to have New Year's Eve dinner together. I secretly complained to my mom. Why did you invite him over? My mom gave me a look. Theo is alone here. He can't even eat dumplings. I had no choice but to watch Theo sit in front of the dining table. The dumplings you made are really delicious. My mom's mouth almost reached the back of her head. She kept giving him dumplings. If it's delicious, eat more. As the conversation went on, my mom couldn't help but mention again. Olivia, when will you bring a man back for mom? Theo was still there. I was a bit embarrassed. Mom, what are you talking about? Theo also looked at me. Olivia is so beautiful. There must be many people chasing her. Don't worry. My mom pursed her lips. Why should I not worry? This child is just like me. She has been good looking since she was a child. I'll show you her childhood photos later. I really couldn't help it. Mom. Theo also raised the corner of his mouth. Okay. After eating, my mom actually took out the photo album and looked at it with Theo. This is when she was 100 days old. Chubby. So cute. Look how white Olivia was when she was a child. Her eyes were so big. At that time, all the neighbors liked her very much. They said she looked like a doll. This is a school art performance. Oh, this big blush. So funny. My mom was called away by my dad before she finished flipping through. I walked over and said a bit awkwardly, my mom is like this. Don't mind. If you don't want to look, then don't look. Theo also raised his head. His clear pupils were rippling with a smile. I don't mind. Auntie is right. You were really cute when you were a child. I was stunned in place. After watching the Spring Festival Gala, the sound of firecrackers outside still hadn't dissipated. Fireworks were not banned in this small county. All kinds of colorful fireworks were flying everywhere. Although they all seemed to be cheap ones, when they bloomed in the sky, they were no less gorgeous. I was holding a bottle of beer and standing on the balcony. I still couldn't help thinking of what my friend said. She said that I was going to take Liana to the Chevalblate Ranheli in the Maldives for a vacation. In her words, there was no lack of resentment that I couldn't succeed. You said that you have been by his side for so long. Why haven't you caught him? If you were really with him, you could save dozens of lifetimes of hard work. I smiled helplessly. It's really cheap. Now he must be having a sweet time with his little girlfriend. In the future, his new year probably won't need me to accompany him anymore. It's as if his life no longer needs my presence. When my friend knew about my chaotic relationship with Levi, she also scolded me for being cheap. I know. Theo also glanced at me, and a smile floated in his eyes. The two of them are playing on a cruise ship to Antarctica. I closed my mouth and felt like an idiot. Theo also couldn't help laughing. The smoke choked into his throat, and he coughed a few times. Then he picked up the wine next to me and took a sip. I said dryly, that I've drunk that. He handed me an unopened beer and held my bottle himself, saying naturally, what do people usually do for fun here in winter? I was led astray by him, unthought for a while and said, there's nothing much to do here. It's too cold in winter. Well, you can go to the movies. Theo also nodded slightly to show that he understood. I broke the silence and asked curiously, why did you come here? For inspiration. Theo also squinted at the distance. Don't you think the winter here is especially beautiful? That's true. Then, when are you leaving? Theo also didn't answer this question immediately. After a while, he pressed out the cigarette butt on the can, and a barely perceptible arc rose at the corner of his mouth. I originally thought I would leave in spring. Now I suddenly want to stay for a longer period. Why? Because my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I made a gesture to Theo also. He tactfully exited the balcony. Hello? There was silence on the other end for a long time. Levi's voice came out. Olivia, did you change your phone number? I wanted to cut off all contact with Levi, so I only told 2 close friends about changing my phone number. I don't log into my previous WeChat anymore and plan to cancel it after sorting out my interpersonal relationships. But it's too easy for Levi to find a person. I thought our separation was an unspoken default that we both knew, but I didn't expect him to still come looking for me. I mumbled. Levi, I paused and said in a deep voice, "When will you come back? I'll pick you up." In the distance, fireworks exploded. The fleeting brilliance only left I'm not sure what this means. Maybe something like a sky full of remnants? After a second, I took a deep breath of the cold air and felt my throat tighten a little. Levi, I said in a low voice. "I'm not going back." There was no movement on the other end for a long time. After a few seconds, Levi's voice couldn't be heard with any emotion. "Not coming back? What do you mean?" I opened the beer, and white foam overflowed. "It means I'm not going back to New York." I held the can and felt that coldness spread into my body along my palm. My heart ached dull lie, and it became a bit numb because of the alcohol. I planned to stay in my hometown. Levi, you're right. I'm not young anymore. It's time for me to find someone unsettled down. There was only the sound of breathing left on the phone. I was silent for a while. "Then I'll hang up. If there's nothing important in the future, don't look for me anymore." As I was about to hang up, Levi suddenly raised his voice. "Olivia, what the hell do you mean? Explain clearly." Theo also suddenly pushed open the balcony door. Beer. Do you want more?" Levi was stunned. Then he questioned. "Olivia, who are you with?" I didn't want to talk to him anymore and hung up the phone directly and blacklisted this number. "Sorry. Did I disturb you?" Theo also came over again. I shook my head. "No. Boyfriend." He seemed to suddenly become gossipy. "No." I took a sip of beer. The cold liquid washed down along my esophagus. I couldn't help shivering from the cold. A coat with body temperature was suddenly draped over me. I turned my head. Theo also said naturally, "Don't catch a cold." I forgot what time I drank with Theo also that night. I went downstairs sleepily, but found that Theo also had already dressed neatly and was sitting at the dining table chatting with my mom, while peeling garlic. I couldn't help sighing. Some people, even when peeling garlic, look like a poster. No wonder he is a painter. Looking at his own face every day, can his aesthetic level not be high? My mom frowned and scolded me. "It's so late and you still haven't gotten up. Today is the first day of the new year. Theo has already come to pay a New Year's visit." I glared at Theo also. "We drank together yesterday. Why are you being so competitive with me today?" My mom noticed the wound on Theo's forearm exposed when he rolled up his sleeve and exclaimed, Oh, what bit you? Such a big tooth mark." I stopped. Theo also smiled faintly. "Whether it's a straight-haired or curly-haired dog, you have to get a vaccine." "Did you get a vaccine?" "Yes. I gritted my teeth secretly. My mom continued to nag. "You young people are bored staying at home. Go out more. Although our place is small, there are many beautiful places." Theo also lowered his long and slender eyelashes a bit sadly. "Auntie, I don't have any friends here. I don't know where to go for fun." My mom was very distressed and pointed at me. "She has nothing to do at home all day. Let her go out and accompany you." Theo also smiled contentedly. Oh, thank you, Auntie." I rolled my eyes on the side. Theo also looks like a high mountain flower, but I didn't expect him to be such a scheming person. 7 the next morning, I simply tittied up. I originally planned to go out with Theo also after having breakfast. My mom was still busy in the kitchen when there was a knock on the door. It must be Theo also coming over to have a meal again. I went to open the door and happily, "Come to have a meal again." My voice got stuck in my throat. I opened my eyes wide. Standing outside the door was Levi. He was wearing a black coat. There was a layer of snow on his shoulder. He blinked. The melted snow wet his eyelashes. "You," I stammered. "What are you doing here?" "I came to pay a New Year's visit to Uncle and Aunt. You have taken so many red envelopes from me over the years. It's time for me to get one, right?" My mom came out of the kitchen holding a spatula and said excitedly, "Theo is here? Auntie made your favorite braised pork buns." She looked at Levi in surprise. Levi, I nodded to my mom. Auntie, Happy New Year. I am Levi I. Olivia's friend. As he said this, he put the big and small bags in his hand in the living room and said politely, sorry to visit without notice. I hope Uncle and Aunt don't mind. I glanced at those big and small bags. All kinds of expensive supplements under Hermes bag. Even if my parents emptied their wallets, they couldn't afford such a big red envelope. My mom put down the spatula hesitantly. Oh no. That? She racked her brains to find a topic. Levi, have you eaten? If not, eat together. I thought Levi would refuse. After all, when has a young master like him ever eaten in an environment like my home? But Levi nodded and said obediently, I haven't eaten. Thank you, Auntie. I stared at him secretly and felt that he must be having a mental problem. For Levi's arrival, my parents were polite, but a bit distant. My parents are not fools. They know who is responsible for my wasted years. In fact, it's not Levi's fault that he doesn't like me. But of course my parents think their daughter is perfect. If others don't like her, they are short-sighted. They have been cold to him all along. After a while, the doorbell rang again. My mom went to open the door. Theo also came in carrying a watermelon. Auntie, I just saw someone selling watermelons and bought one by the way. My mom's face immediately changed. She smiled and said, oh, come as you are. Why bring something? Watermelons are very expensive in winter. This child is wasting money. It's not expensive. Auntie, did you make braised pork buns this morning? I can smell the fragrance. Yes. My mom quickly got slippers for Theo also. Your favorite. Eat as much as you want today. There's enough. Yes. Theo also has already got his own pair of slippers at my house. I estimate that if I come home half a year later, my parents will belong to him. The dining room became lively all of a sudden. Theo also chatted with my mom about family affairs. Levi was silent and didn't eat much. I really don't understand why Theo also, such a rich and handsome guy and also a painter, should be very cold and aloof according to reason. How can he chat with a middle-aged woman from Aunt Lee's daughter in the south marrying a blonde guy and getting pregnant before marriage, almost driving Aunt Lee to death, to Uncle Wang at the east and losing his moral integrity, and having an affair with the nanny and wanting his wife to leave with nothing? What on earth is all this? Until Theo also asked me, Olivia, where are we going to play today? Levi suddenly put down his chopsticks and looked at Theo also coldly. Excuse me, who are you? This question was quite impolite. But Theo also wasn't angry. He smiled and said, Oh, I am the one who lives in this house. Levi's face suddenly darkened. This meal made me feel extremely uncomfortable. After eating, I immediately dragged Levi upstairs. What on earth are you doing here? I frowned and said, shouldn't you be in the Maldives with Liana? Levi turned his head. Suddenly I don't want to go. As he said this, he became a bit angry and questioned me. Olivia, why did you suddenly go back to your hometown? Is it not enough money to spend in New York? No house or car? I'll give you money. I have houses and cars. I'll give them to you when you come back. I fixed my eyes on Levi's face. 35. The arrogance between his eyebrows and eyes was too sharp. It should have seemed a bit mean. However, this face was so good-looking. That bit of meanness also became an aloof and romantic air. So many years have passed. He hasn't changed much. I pursed my lips and smiled bitterly. Levi, what do you want me to go back for? He was stunned. There is nothing left in New York to keep me. And there's me. Are you just going to abandon me like this? We've been together for so many years. Levi lowered his eyebrows and looked a bit annoyed. You already have Liana, don't you? Levi I raised my head and looked at him seriously. I can't revolve around you all my life. I also have my own life. I'm not young anymore. It's time for me to find someone and settle down. Didn't you say that? Levi stared at me blankly. Theo also called me outside. Olivia, are you ready? The car is here. As soon as I went out, Levi grabbed me. He grabbed me very hard. My wrist hurt. Who is he? His face was gloomy. A tenant at my house. Tenant? Levi I sneered. I think your parents are about to take him as their son-in-law. Right? Olivia. Did you come back to your hometown because of him? I was impatient. Think whatever you want. Let go. I'm going out. Levi I pushed me against the wall and harshly pinched my cheek with one hand. His eyes were full of anger. He spoke without thinking. What? Have you slept with him? Is he more able to satisfy you than me? Levi I turned his head away. This slap was with all my strength. He wiped it with his thumb. Instead of being angry, he smiled and held my hand and put it on the other side of his face. Are you relieved? If not, hit this side too. I was so anxious that my eyes turned red and tears couldn't help falling. Levi I. What on earth do you want? Tears fell on his arm as if they had burned him. Levi I suddenly came to his senses. He reached out and helplessly wiped away my tears. I'm an asshole. I said the wrong thing. Olivia, don't cry. At this moment, the grievance that had accumulated for so long suddenly burst. I couldn't hold it back anymore. I squatted on the ground, buried my head in my arms and sobbed bitterly. Levi I panicked and comforted me. I'm sorry. Olivia. I was wrong. I was too angry just now. Hit me. He pulled me up and randomly wiped my face. Don't cry. Hit me. I cried even louder. I was so angry that I trembled all over and pointed at the door. Get out. Levi I. You disgust me. Get out. This was the first time I hit Levi I. It was also the first time. Levi I stood there in a daze. A trace of confusion appeared on his face. Just then, his phone rang. After answering it, Liana's voice came out. Levi I. Where have you gone? My stomach suddenly hurts very much. I'm in the hospital now. Come back and accompany me. Okay? Levi I didn't speak and hung up the phone. After a long time, he suddenly said in a low voice, Olivia, if you ask me to stay, I won't leave. I wiped away a tear and said calmly, you go. Levi I. Don't come to find me anymore. Levi I took one last look at me. His eyes were pitch black. Okay, he said. Olivia, don't regret it. Then he left angrily. I don't know why Levi I did this. After thinking about it, it's probably because I always revolved around him before. Suddenly I left. He felt a bit uncomfortable. Perhaps in his eyes, even if he doesn't like me, I should always follow him and pester him. But with Levi I's proud nature, after being scolded by me like this, he should definitely not come again. I wiped away a tear. I felt very complicated in my heart. It also seemed empty. There was nothing left. I didn't go out with Theo also that day. I explained to him with red eyes. Theo also didn't say anything. He just reached out and touched my head. As a result, he came again that night. My parents had all gone to visit relatives. As soon as I opened the door, Theo also had a white lace underwear hanging on his slender finger. It was mine. My face flushed red. I snatched that underwear and held it in my hand. I lowered my voice. Where did you get this? Theo also looked innocent. It blew over from your balcony. I was collecting inspiration in the yard. Then it suddenly fell on my head. My head was about to explode. I stammered and didn't know what to say. Theo also just kept smiling, looking at the underwear in my hand. That smile was so annoying that I couldn't even thank him. Isn't it old-fashioned? Isn't it? Theo also said with a smile. How could it be? It's very cute. I lowered my head and suddenly felt my heart skip a beat. Have a good rest tonight. Theo also stuffed a jar into my hand. I'll pick you up tomorrow. He closed the door and left. I looked down. It was a bottle of hot milk. In the cold winter, that warmth spread upward along my palm. I reached out and touched my heart. There seemed to be a fullness there. 15 in the end. Theo also and I didn't watch the movie. The movie was at 6 p.m. Because of the heavy snow, we couldn't get a taxi. His own car wasn't brought either. I asked him to watch for the last bus. As a result, this young master probably has never taken a bus before. After asking that it was the last bus at around 6 p.m., he confidently took me out. As a result, when we arrived at the bus stop, the bus had already left. We chased after it for a long time but it didn't stop. I was extremely angry. An 80 yuan movie ticket was wasted like this. There was no way. Since I had already put on makeup, let's just take a walk by the sea. The seaside in winter is very beautiful. The whole world seems to have added a layer of cold blue filter. The streets are all white. The blue signs are stuck in the snow. Occasionally, there are small couples tightly wrapped up chatting and laughing together. On the narrow street, the headlights of the cars reflected the falling snowflakes into warm yellow. Theo also and I walked on the beach, chatting casually. These days I have also checked. Theo also is actually a very famous genius painter in the industry. A painting costs at least 6 figures. Even one of his paintings was auctioned for more than 3 million yuan in Hong Kong before. What have you been painting recently? I haven't seen you paint. Theo also glanced down at me. I won't tell you. If you don't tell me, then don't tell me. Do you think I want to know? You are really pretentious. I rolled my eyes. The cold and damp sea breeze seemed to drill into people's bones. After staying in the south for so many years, I was a bit unaccustomed to such cold weather. I rubbed my hands and blew on them. Theo also said in a teasing way, I told you to wear more. You only care about looking good. Are you cold now? I said to him. A normal man would take off his clothes and give them to a woman now. Are you really a man? Actually, I don't usually talk like this. My friends all say that I have a good temper. But I don't know why when I'm with Theo also. I always can't help but argue with him. Theo also raised an eyebrow. But I'm only wearing one down jacket. If I give it to you, I'll be cold. Damn man. Before, I thought he was sensible and interesting. Now it seems that I was wrong. I walked forward angrily. Since he wouldn't give me his clothes, then forget it. I'll generate heat through exercise. But Theo also grabbed me. His low laughter rang above my head. As he said this, he unzipped his clothes and pulled me into his arms and wrapped me up. The faint fragrance of verbena surrounded me. I was stunned and pressed against his chest. Only then did I hear the violent heartbeat belatedly. I don't know if it was mine or his. He was very warm, and the cold was dispelled. We just stood on the beach snuggled up quietly like this. Neither of us spoke first. The snow didn't know when it stopped. The clouds in the night sky dispersed, revealing a few scattered stars. One of them was particularly bright. Theo also looked up for a while. Olivia. Have you seen The Princess and the Frog? My mind went blank. What? There is a firefly in it. It has always liked a star. He gave that star a name. I nodded blankly. And then? The waves on the shore had frozen. The successive whites were spread out flat. The waves constantly surging up behind were piled with snowflakes. Olivia. Theo also suddenly called me. I looked up. Theo also looked at me deeply. There was a glimmer flowing in his eyes, gentle and affectionate. Slowly, he bent down. I didn't dodge. A slightly cool kiss fell on my lips. Sitting on the plane back to New York, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the window. I just said I wouldn't come back. Now I'm back again. It's just that a friend's wedding is the most important event in life. I have to come no matter what. Theo also insisted on coming with me. But after that kiss, my heart was in a mess. When I refused, he was very unhappy. When I left, he stared at me directly at the airport. Olivia, if you don't come back, I'll go to New York to find you. I nodded. I'll come back. I'll come back tomorrow. As soon as I put the reed envelope into the box and entered the banquet hall and sat down, I naturally pulled out the chair next to me and sat down. Liana frowned when she saw me but still smiled and said to me, Sister Olivia, I heard that you went back to your hometown. Why are you back? I came back to attend the wedding and then I'll go back. Liana breathed a sigh of relief and her smile became wider. So that's it. Then I and Levi I will attend it too. I was too lazy to play word games with her and said perfunctorily, if you have time, during the meal. I don't know how Levi showed affection. For a while, he gave food to Liana. For a while, he blocked drinks for Liana. The two leaned against each other, sticky and sweet. In the past, I would definitely feel uncomfortable. But at this time, all I could think about was that kiss from Theo also. What did he mean? Does he like me? Then what should I do? Do I like him? Levi. I showed affection even more vigorously. At first, Liana was still full of smiles. After Levi I gave her a piece of beef, her expression suddenly changed. She said stiffly, Levi, I'm allergic to beef. Have you forgotten? Levi's movements paused. Just as he was about to speak, there was suddenly a commotion nearby. The next table was the family table. The man's family was dissatisfied that the woman had bought a house before marriage. Under the influence of alcohol, they shouted, Your family is calculating with us. The woman's relatives were also unhappy. At that time, it was agreed that we would pay the down payment together to buy a house. Your family secretly bought the house and asked my family to pay for the decoration. What's the reason for this? The man's uncle, drunk, pointed at their noses and scolded. What's wrong with decoration? It means moving in with luggage. Is your family selling their daughter? The woman's family also stood up. What do you mean by selling a daughter? The things that were agreed upon before were secretly changed by you. Everyone knows that houses can appreciate in value while decoration will only depreciate. Do you think only your family is smart and others are all stupid? The two families argued back and forth and wouldn't stop no matter how the bride and groom tried to mediate. I don't know who started it first. For a while, the whole place was in chaos. In the chaos, several bottles were thrown at our table. Levi suddenly stood up and blocked in front of me. A wine bottle hit Liana on the head. After a crisp sound, blood oozed from Liana's head. But Levi, I didn't notice. After blocking the bottles in front of me, he said nervously, Olivia, are you okay? Liana's hair was mixed with blood and stuck to her forehead. She stood there, looking at Levi, blocking me behind him in a daze. Only then did Levi notice the injury on her head. He opened his mouth to say something but fell silent. Liana's eyes slowly reddened. I had a bad feeling. I got up, took my bag and was about to leave. I could understand Liana's hostility towards me, but I had already intervened between them. I'll go back first, I said in a hurry. Thank you just now. Wait. Levi subconsciously wanted to chase me. Liana said with a crying voice behind him. Levi, if you dare to chase her, we'll break up. Levi's footsteps slowly stopped. After a moment, he looked back at Liana. There was a look of relief. Okay, he said. Liana opened her eyes wide. After a long time, she stared directly at Levi. Tears fell down. Levi. She slightly lifted her chin. There was a mixture of heartbreak and hatred in her eyes. You are too much. Then she turned around and ran out in a mess without looking back. Walking out of the hotel, I lowered my head and asked, Why? Levi didn't speak. After a long time, he suddenly stopped and laughed self-deprecating. Why? Because I fucking like you. Okay? Olivia. I understand. I finally understand. I'm an idiot. His back didn't seem so straight anymore. It was as if the stone that had been pressing on him had finally been removed. Let's be together. I know you like me. From now on, I'll give you everything you want. I won't be with others anymore. Come back, Olivia. I looked at him for a while and couldn't help thinking that if he could have said this a few months ago, how happy I would have been. I have liked him for so many years. In these 10 years, I have been tired, cried, and felt uncomfortable, but I have never given up my love for him for a moment. I finally got what I had dreamed of. Levi responded to my feelings, but I only felt ridiculous in my heart. An indescribable exhaustion welled up. I shook my head. No. Levi grabbed my shoulder. His eyebrows were knitted tightly, and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Why? Olivia, dare you say you don't like me? I looked into his eyes. This person I have loved for 10 years has changed from a teenager to a man. Clearly, his appearance hasn't changed much. But I feel that things change easily. It seems that everything has changed. For the first time, I clearly knew that we couldn't go back to the past. No one will always wait for you in the same place, I said calmly. Levi, liking you is an extremely tiring thing. I'm already tired and don't want to like you anymore. Sparse moisture fell on me. It was raining. The rain gradually became heavier. In the rain curtain, the traffic flowed continuously. The neon lights were bizarre and flowing with dreamlike colors. Levi's eyes were fixed on me. The raindrops fell into his eyes, and that little spark slowly went out. His lips slowly opened, and his voice trembled. Olivia, don't be like this. Give me another chance. Please. Levi is an extremely proud person. After being by his side for so many years, I have never seen him so humble, he said. Please. But who should I ask for help when I liked him so much and suffered so much in those years? I suddenly understood that liking doesn't disappear gradually. It disappears suddenly at a certain moment. After that fire that almost burned me out went out at a certain moment, it could never burn again. I pulled down Levi's hand and said softly, "It's too late." Levi's eyebrows and corners of his eyes were all covered with water droplets. His clothes were completely wet. His hair stuck to his face. This rain seemed to carry a huge weight. Layer by layer, it broke all his pride. He blinked. A drop of water fell to the ground with a plop. I don't know if it was rain or tears. Half a year after returning to my hometown, there has been no progress in my relationship with Theo also. We still get along happily. But every time when it comes to confirming our relationship, I always feel that I'm not ready yet. The last relationship was too painful for me. I'm a bit scared. This day I went to find Theo also but saw him packing things. The suitcase was standing aside. He was folding clothes. I didn't know what I felt. I just felt that my heart suddenly tightened and my breathing wasn't smooth. Are you leaving? I said in a daze. Theo also didn't look up. Why so suddenly? When's your flight? At 2 p.m. I'll leave soon. I stood there, a bit stiff. Oh, so that's it. The room fell silent. I should say something, but I couldn't say anything. After standing for a long time, I forced a smile. Well, it's just that the snow here is beautiful. In summer, there's nothing special. Theo also looked up at me. Don't you have anything else to say? The fake smile on my face must be extremely ugly. Have a safe trip. And then, I couldn't hold back the soreness in my nose and lowered my head to hide it. Nothing else. Theo also smiled wickedly. Oh, you're about to cry. My eyes were swollen. But he bent down mischievously and looked at me from below. Are you crying? Are you really crying? This person is really sick. Now I really couldn't cry. I angrily pushed him. But Theo also laughed. The corners of his eyes were raised. I know you can't bear to part with me. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Don't forget to pick me up. I was stunned. Are you coming back? Nonsense. He gave me a look. With one hand, he wiped away tears at the corner of my eyes. I paid the rent for a year. I subconsciously said, what about after a year? Theo also stroked his chin and thought. After a year, I guess Mom won't ask her son-in-law for rent. My face flushed red. I reached out and hit him. Whose son-in-law are you? Theo also grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. The smile on his face was no longer teasing. Gently, he lifted my face. In the ambiguous kiss, he said, wait for me to come back. The next time I received news about Levi was half a year later. A friend sent it. Do you know that Levi has severe depression? A few days ago, he took a bottle of sleeping pills with wine. Fortunately, his assistant found him early and sent him to the hospital. He was rescued after gastric lavage, she said carefully. After hesitating for a while, I still refused. Our lives should have parted ways long ago. Whether it's good or bad, I don't want to have any contact with him anymore. But I didn't expect Levi to come looking for me. The snow in the north came very early. It was only December, and snow was already falling all over the sky. The small town wasn't too noisy. The snow was also quiet. Theo also and I were just coming back from shopping at the supermarket, when we saw a black figure standing under the street lamp downstairs not far away. There was already a thick layer of snow covering him. Levi just looked at us quietly. His eyes were desolate. Olivia. His voice fell in the snow, with a slight tremor. I pushed Theo also. You go back first. I'll go up later. Theo also frowned. Then he reluctantly said, "Give you 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes." After he left, Levi walked up to me. After nearly a year of not seeing each other, he was a bit thinner. The eyes that were always sharp had also dimmed. "Is there something?" I asked him. He just looked at me fixedly. His eyes slowly reddened. He said hoarsely, "Olivia, I can't let go." "What should I do?" "How did you let go? Teach me." "Okay," I said calmly. "When it hurts enough, you'll let go." Levi's expression was a bit dazed. He slightly bent down. It was as if this sentence had turned into a knife and stabbed into his flesh. We just missed each other. His eyes were red. If I had understood earlier, maybe we could. "No, we can't." I shook my head and smiled bitterly. Levi, between us, it was never a matter of missing. As long as I don't leave, you will never think of me. We are destined. There will be no result. Levi's lips moved. He seemed to want to say something but couldn't say it. Watermarks fell down from the corners of his eyes. Perhaps it was melted snow. I held his hand inside when I saw the fresh scars on his wrist. Levi, I used to think that if I couldn't get the person I loved, the sky would fall, but now I understand that in this world, everyone can live without anyone else. Sooner or later, you'll let go too. I looked at my watch and it was almost 5 minutes. Theo also was a petty person. If I was late, he would be sarcastic again. I turned around and waved. "Goodbye, Levi." After walking a long way, there suddenly came a heart-nicking shout from behind. "Olivia, I can't let go. I can't let go for the rest of my life." I didn't stop. "Hey Olivia, I can't let go." Suddenly I remembered that a few days ago, my boyfriend was looking through my QQ album and found a photo of me and my ex-boyfriend that I forgot to delete. He was being sarcastic. "Oh, no. Keep it as a memory. After all, it's your first love boyfriend. It must be hard to forget." "I'm not angry. No need." I was taking off my shoes. Theo also leaned against the wall and was being sarcastic to me. He kept looking at me with his eyes. I pretended to be natural. "Mom asked us to go eat dumplings later. Are you going?" He immediately forgot what had just happened. "Go." The news that the genius painter Theo also was going to hold an art exhibition made it to the hot search. My friend was extremely excited and called me. Please. You know Theo also, right? Help me get a ticket. I really like him." I went to find Theo also, but he only gave me 1 ticket. "There are no more. Just 1 for you." "What's so great?" I gritted my teeth in my heart. But on the day of the art exhibition, I went there honestly. I really wanted to see what Theo also had painted in this small town. The name of the art exhibition was Evangeline. Somewhat strangely, there was no one at the entrance. The exhibition hall was dark. I was a bit puzzled. Could it be that I remembered the wrong time? In the next second, all the lights turned on at the same time. I was stunned in place. In the exhibition hall, large and small, scattered unevenly, were all portraits of me, drinking beer on the balcony, walking on the beach in a coat, lowering my head and blushing and I'm not sure what this means. Maybe smiling foolishly. I never knew that Theo also had painted so many portraits of me. I also didn't know how he remembered. The characters, the expressions were vivid. The gentle brushstrokes were full of love. Every scene after we met was recorded by him with his paintings. I walked along the corridor to the back. Only then did I see that the last one was an oil painting. In the quiet night sky, 2 stars were snuggled up together, emitting a soft light. My eyes couldn't help but become sour as I looked at the person who came out after the painting. Theo also smiled. Olivia, will you be my Evangeline? My eyes reddened but